Begin the current Daf Masech Shabbos Daf Tes. Beginning at the top of the Amid, where our shiur is co-sponsored by Kalzrich and Yecheskel, Torah Anytime, and Daf HaChaim. Some of the ideas we're going to speak about in today's Daf is the status of a threshold, which we call in the skufa, at the entrance to a mavoi, which a mavoi has houses opening up into different courtyards, and you would look at it as it's in the shape of a cul-de-sac, and then you have these courtyards opening up into a general common area of a mavoi, which then that opens up into the Rosh Hashanah. Now, rabbinically, and biblically, the mavoi is a Rosh Hashanah, it's not a Rosh Hashanah. But rabbinically, they said you're not allowed to carry in the mavoi because it has the appearance of a Rosh Hashanah unless you do one of the two things, either making a kaira, which is a side post, or that's a lechi, or a kaira, which is a beam. Now, a lechi has to have a height of 10 tfachim. It doesn't have to have any specific width. Now, the halacha regarding a lechi is that you're allowed to carry in the mavoi only up until the inside corner. This is going to be very important for the halacha we're going to discuss today's daf of that lechi. Now, in contrast, because we're going to see the cases are going to depend if it's a lechi or a kaira, a cross beam, you're allowed to carry until the outside corner. Not only the inside corner, even the outside corner, only if it's connected to a Rishus HaYachid, which means to say there's nothing blocking it from being part of the Rishus HaYachid, or if the beam itself has 4x4 tfachim. So again, either you have that this is 4x4 tfachim, or if it's connected somehow to the mavoi, then you're going to consider it as the mavoi, which is we're going to make a Rosh Hashanah by making the lechi or the kaira. It's going to be part of it that way. But if not, then you're not allowed to carry. But if it is, you could carry, unlike the lechi, which you could only carry in the mavoi from within, by the kaira you could actually carry until the outside corner of it. Another interesting halacha we can discuss is what's called pi tikr yored b'saisim. Pi tikr means to say the opening of the beam, which is the edge, is yored v'saisim. We view it like as if there's an imaginary wall coming down, like the edge of the beam has a vertical part to it. So although the beam is horizontal, the edge has some thickness. That's like almost the beginning of a wall, and we have this imaginary halacha as if there's a wall coming down. Additionally, another important halacha that's going to come up in today's daf is the concept known as lavud. Lavud is, let's say you have these two beams near each other. If there's the area less than 3 tfachim, they're considered halachically connected, as if it's one continuous wall. Additionally, we're going to, on Amid Beis is when we're going to start the next Mishnah, the second Mishnah in Masech Shabbos, that although it's seemingly talking about something different, we'll explain why it's being brought over here. Our activities are forbidden before Mincha. If we start these activities, we're going to forget to daven, therefore you're not allowed to do these activities before you daven Mincha. Additionally, the Gemara is going to discuss, when we talk about the Zman of Mincha, there's something called Mincha Gedaila and something called Mincha Getana. Mincha Gedaila is 3.5 hours after midday. It's actually, this is a mistake. Yeah, other way around. Mincha Gedaila is a half hour after midday, which is, as we'll explain in a second, on a perfect day is, let's say, 12:30. And Mincha Ketana is 3.5 hours after midday, because we go with what's called a shoy zmaniyos, which every hour is 1/12 of the time between sunrise and sunset. So, although sunrise, if let's say, it depends on the time, but if it was 6 a.m. and sunset is 6 p.m., then you have 60-minute hours. But again, depending on the time, if you have a shorter day, then the hours are shorter, and if it's longer, then the hours are longer. So in a perfect day, 6 to 6, then we would say that the time is going to be, Mincha Gedaila is going to be 12:30, and Mincha Ketana then would be at 3:30. So we begin the current Daf Testament Aleph. We go back to the Bryce we were discussing in Daf Vav. When we were discussing the Daled Rishuyah, so we spoke about the laws of Iskufa, of the doorstep. So we brought the opinion of the Tanakama, how we qualify that, which we just mentioned on the previous Daf, that we consider is as a Makom Petur. But the Achayim, they said as follows. They said Iskufa, the threshold, Mishamesh Shtei Rishuyas. It functions as two different domains. What does that mean? When the door is open, so then kilifnim, then you're going to view the area of the threshold as if it's inside the area of the Rishus HaYachid, of the domain that it's part of. But if, let's say, Pesach Nol, if the door is closed, then kilachutz, then you're going to view the area of the threshold as if it's on the outside, and we're going to view that as Rishus HaRam. Now, on that the Gemara asks. The Gemara's assumption right now is that we're talking about a mavli that was validated. As we said, the mavli is not just able to be carried inside of it because it has the appearance of Rishus Harabim. There's a rabbinic requirement that you go ahead, besides joining together with the food, you have to also make a sign to differentiate, which the Gemara, there's two ways of doing it, either with a lechi or a kaira. Our Gemara is assuming that it's with a lechi, with a side post. Now, the way it works in the validation of a mavli with a lechi is that only from the area, as we said in the introduction, from within of the lechi is going to be permitted. Now, the lechi is made on the inner part of the threshold, and therefore you could only carry from within the area of the lechi. So therefore the Gemara is going to ask right now, lechi, even though there's no lechi on the outside area, there's no additional lechi that you're going to be able to carry in the threshold? Yeah, okay, you have the door open, so we don't have a separation. But still, the lechi is on the inside. How are you going to be able to carry in the threshold? You're only allowed to carry from the inner part of that side post. That's on the inner part of the threshold. So is that even so, even though there's no lechi in the outside? But he says, Teicha Pesach, he says, inside the entryway of the mavli itself, meaning to say where the threshold is, that's the width of the iskufa. The halacha is, tzarich lechi acher la'atira. You need another lechi to permit carrying in the threshold itself. So how are you telling me if the door is open, you're allowed to carry by the threshold, but you only can carry from within where the lechi is? And if you want to carry in the threshold, you would have to have another lechi. How are you saying that you could carry if the door is open by the threshold? Says the Gemara, if you're going to say, the less bay we're talking about that we don't have over here, mean to say that in other words, he said tzarich lechi latira, like we said, the lechi permits the mavli. It's closed off by the area of the iskufa. We said you're not allowed to utilize the area that's opposite the lechi. Rather, as we're saying, from the inner, it has to be from the inner part. So the Gemara is attempting an approach to answer the question. It says, and if you're going to say the less bay, that they're in the iskufa, you don't have a width of dalet al dalet of 4x4, and that is, this iskufa is not its own domain because it doesn't have a makom dal al dalet. So therefore you're allowed to utilize the area that's, yes, even opposite the area of the side post from the outer part of the side post, which is equal to the width of the iskufa by the Rishus Harabim. So then you're telling me that, that wouldn't be a problem. In other words, when did we say that you have to have a lechi acher latiroi? It will view the iskufa as its own domain because it's a makom dalet. But if we're talking about that's less than dalet, then you're allowed to carry along the entire distance, the area of wherever you have the lechi being over there. You don't have to go ahead and make another lechi because it's not a makom dalet. But says the Gemara, but v'amar Rav Chama bar Gur Yemarav, it says Teicha Pesach, in the ear space, in the width of the doorway, which is this iskufa and the threshold, even though there's no area of 4x4, the halacha is tzarich lechi acher latira. You need another lechi to permit it. It's not even if it's less than dalad. It's not because it's considered its own distinct area, because dalad that you have to have a lechi acher. You always need because it's not considered part of the permissible area of the mavli. I don't care how small it is. So therefore, how are you saying if the door is open, you can carry in the skupa, but the problem is, it's only from the inner part of the lechi, and the skupa is on the outer part of the lechi. So how are you able to carry over there? No, it's not a makom tur because it's considered part of Rishus Harabim. Doesn't have its own height of a permissible area because it's considered batal to the Rishus Ha. What's the makom tur? Why wouldn't it be considered makom tur? I have to think about the question. What? Tzidei Rishus Harabim. No, the problem is it's not better than the mavli itself. The mavli itself, what's the mavli? The mavli you can't carry over there. So how are you going to carry over here? The threshold is really part of the mavli. It's just you do a little indentation and you have the door over there. Right. So now what do you consider this area? It's not going to be better than the mavli. If anything, it's considered like no separation from the Rishus Harabim. You're right. Maybe you've had the dimensions of like the Tanakama said. Tanakama said that if you have a skufoi of a makom p'tur, then you actually could carry. But the Acheim are saying that this skufoi is meshamesh shtei reshuyos. They don't consider this as a makom p'tur. So good. You have to think about the exact case why that they're differentiating, but they're saying that it's not going to be better than the mavli itself. And if you're not having the permissibility of the mavli, then it's going to function as a Rishus Harabim. That's what I said. Meshamesh shtei reshuyos. If the door is open, then you could carry over there. It's like part of Rosh Hashanah. If the door is closed, like we consider it part of Rosh Hashanah. So therefore, the Gemara is asking, how could you say that you could carry over there even if the door is open? You need another lechi to permit it. Some of you, the Merav, he says, you're right. Hach over here, you're right. It's like we assumed up until now, and we're saying it because the next answer is going to say a different answer. We're talking about a threshold of the mavi, like you said, but not a mavi that's being permitted with a lechi, with a side pose. Rather, we're talking about a mavi that's permitted with a kaira, with a cross beam, which the cross beam of a mavi, the measurement that, as the Gemara says in the first parak in Erevin Daf Yomi Amud Beis, is it has to have a thickness of a tefach. So the cross beam is going to be a tefach in its width. Now, the iskupa is by the width of the opening, we assume is wider than a tefach. So it comes out that the case is as follows. Chetziyai, half of the width of the opening is going to be makur, is going to be covered with a beam, because again, the beam is only a tefach wide, and we're assuming that the opening of the mavi has a wider doorway, has a wider threshold than just a tefach. So half of it is covered with a beam, but the other half is not covered with a beam. So for example, it's talking about where you place this beam, the kiruya, the cross beam, is kalape panim. You put it in the inner part of the mavi. So therefore, Pesach, Pesuach, if the door is open, so then kilifnim, because what happens is that we view this part as part of the mavi, because the halacha of a kaira is different than the lechi. By a kaira, you're allowed to carry even from the outer part of that beam and to the inner part, which is going even like the mandama that holds that you're allowed to utilize the area beneath the kaira, which we'll discuss at length in Masechtas Erevin. There's a machlekes by the kaira, could you carry under the kaira or not? Either it's going like the opinion holds you could carry under the kaira, either because the reason is that because there's a whole machlekes, what's the utility of a kaira? Is it because it's like a halachic wall, or is it because just like it's a sign, it's a siman that, okay, this is where the mavi ends? So if you hold that it's because of a sign, so there is a mandam that holds that, yeah, because you recognize the end of it. So you could carry underneath the beam because the recognition is from the outer part of it. As the Gemara explains, the machlekes in Erevin Daf Chesam Beis, or because the kaira is like halachic wall, and we say that the outer part is the wall that's yared v'saisim, like we said, pi tikkur yared v'saisim, like it comes down. So be that as it may, the difference here is we're discussing if the door is open, so then we view this as contiguous with the Rosh Hashanah, and the halacha by a kaira is that you could carry beneath, it's like the outer part is coming down. So if it's open, then it's kilifnim. Then we view it as if it's part of it, and you can carry beneath the beam. Pesach, no, but if the door is closed, and therefore the door, what's happening now is that the door is blocking off the entryway of the threshold on the inner part, so therefore it comes out that the whole is skufa, even the part beneath the beam is out of the door, that's kalachutz, that's like on the outside, and even beneath the beam you can't carry, because once you close off the mavi, this kaira is considered totally nullified. Moreover, you can't even, because you can't see it as connected to the mavi. Now, moreover, you cannot either say, and this is where it gets a little bit the lumdus over here, you cannot say yared v'saisim, because the halacha is that the any wall, which this is a halachic wall at the most, is only a wall if it has an airspace of 4 tfachim. If not, then it cannot be considered in halacha as a mechitza, as a wall. So you cannot say good achis that you see the wall extending downward unless it's encompassing an area of 4x4. And that's actually why Rashi explains why our Gemara is saying we're talking about a skuf as mavi, the threshold of a mavi, not of a house, because generally a house, its threshold has a lintel that's on the top and which covers the whole thickness, the whole width of the entryway, and it's all covered. And therefore, even if the door would be closed, if we were talking about a house, we would say yared v'saisim, because by a house, you would have a longer entryway, which the beam would be its own thickness of 4x4, and then we would view pitik or yared v'saisim. So therefore, that's why we're talking about skuf as mavi, because by skuf as mavi we said that no, there the beam is only a tefach. So once the door is closed, so now you can't say pitik or yared v'saisim because all it is a tefach. It's not going to be, even if you say halachically a wall's coming down, it's only going to be area of a tefach. You can't call that as a wall. But the truth is, says Rashi, you could have explained the case that actually all of it is covered with a beam. It's just the width of the beam wouldn't be 4 tefachim. The reason why we didn't say that, and we said no, it's talking about just a beam that's 1 tefach and the other half is not covered, is because generally the thickness of a wall is not less than 4 tefachim. So therefore, it would be an area of 4 tefachim. So therefore, we're saying that you didn't use it all covered. We only covered it with one beam because that's the minimum for the halacha of a kaira by Erev. And since only 1 tefach, so you cannot say pitik or yared v'saisim, and you cannot view it continuous with the Rosh Hashanah because the door is closed. So that's the halacha that we were saying. When we were saying that the door is open, then you could carry. If the door is closed, you cannot. It's told by not a lechi, but a kaira. A kaira you could carry on the outer part. If we view it as an area either connected to the Rishus HaYachid or that has dalad dalad. By the kaira, it's only going to be considered connected if the door is open. If the door is closed, it's not connected and it doesn't have makam dalad dalad. Therefore, you cannot carry beneath the beam. Out of the outer part that there's no beam, for sure you couldn't carry. We were talking about regarding that part that's makura, that's going to depend if the door is open or closed. That's one interpretation. Rav Shloimy gives a second interpretation. He says, La'olam b'skufas ba'isaskin. We're not talking about a mavi. We're talking about a threshold of a house, which it's totally open and it's covered with a roof. Now, so the reason why we're saying that if the door is closed, it's going to be like it's on the outside is Kagain Shakira. We're talking about where you roofed the thickness of the doorway, b'shtei kairos. So all of it is covered, but it's not covered with one beam. It's covered with two cross beams that take up the thickness of the width of the doorway. Now, the reason is because had it been one beam of 4 tfachim, you would say Yerid V'Saisam, even if you would close the door, it would not be mevatel the mechitzas of the tikra, because, like we said, by the mavai is a narrow beam. So we said, since it's only a tefach, so it could only be validated if it's part of the mavai. If you close the door, we said it's going to nullify the beam, and you don't have it connected anymore to the mavai. But here, if you had a beam by the entryway to the house that had a tikra of dalad tfachim, you would not nullify when you're closing the door, because that's halacha misinai, where we say good, we view it as if there's a wall coming down, good aches, or lavud, which is a halacha we can discuss right now, or defna kuma. They're all considered halachic walls or even regular walls when it's encompassing an area of 4 tfachim. Here, the reason why it's going to be a problem if you close the door is because we're talking about that there's 2 beams. She'ein bezu arba. This beam doesn't have 4 tfachim. Ve'ein bezu arba, and this beam doesn't have 4 tfachim. And moreover, ve'ein bein zu lezu, between the 2 beams, you don't have a width of 3 tvach. The deles and the door that was prepared. It closes, when you close the door, it comes out actually be'emtza, it comes out actually in middle of the 2 beams, if you close the door. So therefore as follows. Pesach Besuch, when the door is open, that's kilafnim. That is going to be like this beam, both beams, are going to be like inside the house itself. Why? Because since there is not between these 2 beams 3 tfachim, so you say love, it's like one big thing. So then you say that you view the outer part as if it's Yerid V'Saisim, the P ticker is Yerid V'Saisim, because now you have an area of Dal Tfachim. And they're connected because you don't have the door closing. The door is open, you view it as one big board of 4 tfachim. So you say P ticker Yerid V'Saisim. The problem is, at Pesach, no, if the door is closed, then it's kilachutz. Then it's like on the outside, because since the door closes in the middle, what happens is, it stops now. You can't say love it anymore, because it's not viewed as one thing, because the door is right there in the middle. So then in the outer one is by itself now on the outside. You can't say Pitika Yerid V'Saisim because it doesn't have an area of 4 tvachim. So even if you try to say a halachic wall, you don't have an airspace of 4 tvachim. That's the second interpretation why it depends if the door is open or closed, because it's talking about a scoop is a bias where it has 4 tvachim only when there's loved. When the door closes, bam, it slams right there in the middle. Then the inner one is, of course, part of the house. The outer one is left by itself. It doesn't have any more the connection. It doesn't have 4 tvachim. You can't say particularly Yerid V'Saisim, and therefore it's going to be not considered as part of the inside. Rather, it's going to be considered part of the outside. By the way, I just realized the answer to your question when you asked regarding maybe it's a Makam Torah. Maybe it is, but the point is it's not the Kilafnim. All that Chaim said was that the skufa of the mavi is kilafnim if the door is open, it's kilachutz if it's closed. Whatever the halacha is going to be, if whatever the dimensions you have, it's going to be whatever it is. Point is not going to be kilafnim. And that's the wording that they said, depending if the door is open or closed. So it could be have whatever halacha it's going to have. But the point is, it depends if the door is open or closed. We wanted to know why that's going to be. In this case that we just described, if the door is going to close, it's going to separate, and therefore, again, you can't say love it because we view them as separate things.
You can say, and if that's the door is open, can you say love it and pitik? That's 2 halacha mashmasinas
Right.
combined.
Right.
Can you say that? Because in Sukkah,
Which one?
can you say love it and then...
To say 2 halacha l'meishmezina is to view it as... it would seem like that, right, it would seem like you could. You're saying there's a proof that you can't. There's a case that you're recalling that says you can't do 2 halacha l'meishmezina?
I think doifna kuma and gudachis, it's a problem if you have it on the same corner.
I have to know what the case is, and there might be differences between the halachas of Sukkah and Shabbos. It's a good question. It seems like from this, obviously, right? That's the obviousness of this case, that we're saying love it, and we're saying, actually, it's not really so true I mean, you do. You have to say particular b'saisim over here to view this as closed off, and you are saying loved. Yeah. So it would seem evident from this to be, even if it is a discussion, it would seem evident from here as one of the rayas that you obviously could say to halacha mishmasin. Now, something sounds vaguely familiar, but that seems to be the proof from over here.
The door is closed when it's one piece, right? We said that it has to be two pieces, and that's where we make loved.
No, we're talking about this case. If it was one piece, then of course you would say yard b'saisim, even if the door is closed. But since it's talking about two different beams, that's the case we're discussing. That's going to depend if the door is open or if it's closed. Now we continue with the next halacha, which is really the end of the statement of the acherim of the Bryce and the Vav, which it's really just like as if it said Amamar. So we're going back, and the master said, "V'mhaisis skupa." If the threshold was gevaya yud, was 10 tefachim high, B'rechava had a width of 4 tefachim. So harezu rishus la'atzma. It's considered its own domain. It's like it has the domain of rishus hayachid. So if you can't carry from in to this threshold, even from the house. So although both of them are rishus hayachid, still the halach is being said by the acherim, which that's Remeir, as we're going to point out, it's very important shortly. You can't carry from the house to the threshold, because even though they're both rishus hayachid, but it's an independent rishus hayachid, and you can't carry from that to that one, even though it's in the rishus hayachid technically. It says the Gemara Mesayelu Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Avdimi. Why? Because the Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Avdimi, he says, Meir said, who Remeir, as we said, is the acherim, as the Gemara says in Harias. The Gemara there explains why we call him the others, but he's the acherim. That's Remeir. Remeir said, wherever you find two domains, the hein rishus achas, and really one domain, meaning like in this case where they're both rishus hayachid, it's just that one is lower down and one is higher up. For example, amud b'rishus hayachid. If you have a platform, a beam in rishus hayachid, gevayud v'rachav daled, and it has a height of 10 tefachim and a width of 4 tefachim, even though it's in your rishus hayachid. Interesting. Asla kasav laver Meir said you're not allowed to shoulder stuff on it from your own courtyard. Why? It's a gezer, it's a rabbinic decree, mishum tel b'rishus harabim, because of a mound, a pile in rishus harabim. I mean, if you can have the same thing in rishus harabim, that's a height of 10 tefachim, a width of 4 tefachim, which that's biblically rishus hayachid and zachiv da'iraisa. If you do that from rishus harabim, you can be chayv achiv chatas. You're being over isur da'iraisa Shabbos. So Remeir held even in your own property, you cannot shoulder stuff over here because you might come to do that in rishus harabim. So therefore, that's exactly like this case over here. This is the same thing that the acherim say, that if the skupa has a height of 10 tefachim, a width of 4 tefachim, even though it's right here in your house, it's connected, it doesn't make a difference. You cannot carry from your rishus hayachid to that, otu, because you might come to do that in the rishus harabim. Now we continue to Talmud Beis, where we start a whole new discussion. We finish with all these lamdish sugyas over here, with Lavid and Daif and all these like Gorasik and all these the discussions we had up until now. We start now a new Mishnah, the second Mishnah, Masechta Shabbos, which discusses halachas regarding what you can and cannot do before mincha time. Now, the reason why this is discussed over here, we mentioned this in the beginning of the Masechta, that the Masechta actually follows the order of Erev Shabbos to Friday night. It goes through the order of Shabbos. That's why Taisa asked, why do we talk about Yitzhiyah in the beginning of the Masechta? So, one of the interpretations actually of Taisus was, since in our Mishnah we're going to discuss, actually in the next Mishnah we're going to discuss Erev Shabbos, what you could or could not do, which a tailor cannot go with his needle in his lapel or carry it outside because he might come to forget and do it when it's already Shabbos. So once we're talking about Erev Shabbos before the Zman, we talk about also another afternoon, which is the afternoon of a regular weekday. Which therefore and all these discussed in our Mishnah are all halach l'maises regarding activities that are forbidden to be done before mincha. Says the Mishnah as follows: Lo yeshiv adam lefnei hasab. A person should not sit in front of the barber to take a haircut. Samach lemincha, when it's near the time of mincha. Ad shespal, until he davens first, because he might forget. He might be drawn after what he's doing that activity, and he's not going to daven. Now, as we said, this is even on a regular weekday. As Rashi says, the reason why we're saying over here is because similar to the halacha and the next Mishnah, that B'Yaraf Manaf, which says the tailor can't go out with the needle Erev Shabbos right before it gets dark because he might forget and he's going to do it. It's the same idea. You might forget, you might be drawn after it, and if we say this halacha, which is related over here. So too, like kanas adam, a person should not go in when it's close to the time of mincha, lamerchatz, into the bathhouse, v'loy labursaki, not into a tannery, v'loy lechel, not to eat, v'loy ladin, not to a court case. And the reason for all these things is the same idea. You might get drawn after it, and you might forget, you might miss the time of davening. Now, it says the Mishnah, v'im chilu, but if you started any one of these activities, and that's actually the halacha l'maisa, then that halacha is ein mafsikin. Then we don't stop you, rather we let you finish what you're doing, and then you daven after that. The Gemara later on, Daf Yomi is going to explain that we're talking about that you actually have time to finish before the Zman. Obviously, if there's no time, that would make you stop. But even if you started already in the time of Mincha, prohibitedly, then we let you finish, and that's the halacha of the Mishnah. Now, but again, as Rashi and Taiz both say, it's only if you have time to finish davening. Obviously, if you don't have time to daven, you would have to stop. But if you have time, then you don't have to stop, even though we said you shouldn't. But if you did, you don't have to stop. Now, but mafsikin likas kriyashma. We do stop you to say kriyashma because that's biblical, and therefore that we don't rely on you having extra time. But ve'im mafsikin l'tefillah, we don't stop you b'davening, which the Gemara in Daf Yomi is going to ask. You just said that before. Why are you repeating the same idea that we don't stop you for davening? Now the Gemara asks the following question: Hi samach lemincha. When you say near the time of mincha, there's actually in halacha what we call two minchas man. If you mean what's called the large mincha. What is mincha gedayla? Mincha gedayla is, as we mentioned in the introduction, is the beginning of the time when they could sacrifice the tamid shel bein arbaim, which is the time when it starts getting dark. What does that mean, start getting dark? When the sun moves, it's in middle of the 7th hour, which is between the half of the 6th and half of the 7th hour, from 11:30 to 12:30 on the perfect day, the sun is directly on top of people's heads, and it's coming straight down. Then it's not in either direction. When it's already halfway into the 7th hour, which we could call 12:30, then it starts moving towards the west. So when it's saying samach lemincha would mean at 12 o'clock, from the beginning of the 7th hour, which is when you finish the 6th hour. So do you mean mincha gedayla, that already then you can't go take a haircut, you can't go eat, and all these things? Why not? There's so many hours into the day. What, already at 12 o'clock, you're already preparing for nighttime already? Rather, no, what are you going to say? Samach lemincha ketana. We mean to say the other mincha. It's called the small mincha, because you have less time over there. It's 9.5 hours into the day, which actually, in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, they didn't delay, generally, the carbon tamid shel bein arbaim after that time. So, of course, you could bring it till it gets dark, but they would do it at latest 9.5 hours into the day. So that means to say the beginning of the 10th hour, which is after 9 hours, which you could call 3 o'clock on the perfect day from 6 to 6, that's what you mean to say. Then you can't go into court case again, you can't, because that's getting close to dark. Says the Gemara, but then I have a difficulty with the other words in the Mishnah. The Mishnah said in Mischilu, if they started Emav Sik and we don't stop you, what? And you're going to miss Zman Mincha? Name it Tavat to Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg. This should be a refutation of Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg. Because the Amr Shloimy Schwartzberg, he says, Kimin Shagi is Zman Tfilas Mincha. He says, once it comes time for davening Mincha, which obviously is at least Mincha Ketana, he says, Asl Adam Shitim Kol, a person is not allowed to eat anything, Koidim Shisbal Tfilas Mincha, before you daven Mincha. And here we're saying that you finish your meal. How can we say you finish your meal? Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg says, no, that's it. You can't, I don't care what you started, you can't eat until you daven Mincha. So he's talking about Mincha Ketana. So if we're saying it's by Mincha Ketana, so then why does that Mishnah say that you don't have to stop? Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg says you can't eat anything. So obviously refutes Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg. Says the Gemara, no. The truth is we're talking about when it's close to Mincha Gedayla, meaning when it's at 12 o'clock. So then the question comes back. You have so much time in the day. Can't take a haircut? How long does your haircut take already? 15, 20, 30 minutes? How long? You can't take a haircut before you daven Mincha? Says the Gemara, and we're going to explain each one of these cases why we're concerned already at noon that you might miss Mincha already when dark. Because the B'Taspoir is ben Alasha. We're talking about a certain type of haircut. We're talking about that this Ben Elisha was a son-in-law of Rabbi Huda Hanasi. He spent tons of money to learn exactly how to get what's called the haircut of the Kohen Gadol. As the Gemara says in Nadar Nanalef Menalef, the way the Kohen Gadol would get a haircut is that every hair, the end of the hair would be the beginning of the next hair follicle. So you didn't really just do a regular haircut. The hair ended where the next hair started. That's a very, very difficult haircut to do. And that takes a long time. That haircut, yes, you cannot start that haircut before even Mincha Gedayla. And when we said V'loy L'merchad, you can't go to the bathhouse. Taking a bath takes so long, you have to have a Mincha before you take a bath. We're talking about the Kula Milsa the Merchad. We're talking about all the full spa treatment, which is you go to wash your hair and to go into the hot bath and go into the cool water and to sweat and to schwitz. And that type of bath is what we're talking about. You cannot do, even before Mincha Gedayla. That takes a long time. You do that for a few hours in the spa. You got to have a Mincha before you do that. When we say below labursiki, you can't go into the tannery, which they would work out the hides, is labursiki gedayla. We're talking about where a person has many hides and he's just starting with this whole new shipment of hides. That's going to take a long time. You might be drawn after that and you might miss mincha. Yes, even already from mincha gedayla, where you could start davening mincha. No, you first have daven mincha and then only go to the tannery. When we say below lechel, you can't eat, we mean besuda gedayla. Oh, a huge banquet, a chasna. No, you can't go ahead and even start at 12:30, at 12 o'clock, until you go ahead and you daven mincha. And when we say you can't go into court case, it means the beginning of a court case. The beginning of a court case can take hours and hours and hours. You got to daven first, because you could soon, shortly in the next half hour, you got to first daven and only then start the court case. That's one interpretation. Rav Acha Yaakov, he gives a different interpretation to resolve Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg. He says, the truth is, but Taspoy is done. We're actually talking about, yes, mincha gedola, because or else it would be difficult in Shuma Levi. And we're talking about a regular haircut. A regular haircut at 12 o'clock, you can't take, it's not the special haircut of Ben Elasha. So why can't you do it before mincha? Like it's chila ma'lo yeshiv. So why can't you sit down initially for the haircut? It's gezerish and yeshava hazoig. We're concerned that maybe the pair of scissors are going to break, and they're going to have to go get another pair of scissors. And because of that concern, that might take a long time. And therefore, you have to put that into consideration, and you're not allowed to go ahead and take the haircut if it's already samach l'mincha. You got to daven mincha even before mincha g'dayla. When we say below l'merched, you can't go to the bathhouse. Also, it's not about taking the whole spa treatment. A regular bath, lahaziyah ba'alma, just to go and schwitz. Like it's chila ma'iloi. Why can't you initially do it? Gizerish and alpha. We're concerned that you might come to faint. So right, although a regular bath doesn't take so long, you're not going to miss mincha, but you might faint, and then you're going to miss mincha. Below the burski, when you say you can't go to the tannery, you're right. It's not for a large shipment order. You're literally just going to inspect and check and assess what's going on. And even though you cannot do it even samach l'mincha gedayla. So like a tchila ma'ilai, why can't you do that initially? Says the Gemara, because dilma chazib pseida bezavine, he might come in and do a quick check, and he might see something that's bad with the hides. Oh, mitrid, and he's going to become all perturbed, he's going to be in pain, and he's going to be so overcome by, oh my gosh, this whole shipment, he just came to look at the shipment that came. He wasn't going to do any work, and he's not going to daven, so therefore we don't even let you do that, even just to do a check before you daven mincha, even by mincha gedayla. When we say b'leilecha, you can't eat, is even besuda ketana, not a large banquet, just to eat a lunch. Like it's chila ma'ilai, so why can't you eat lunch? You might become drawn after the food. You might get all into the food, the gustatory delights that you have prepared for you. Go to the fridge, and then it's going to come to draw. You actually might come to miss mincha. And below the din, you can't even go for a court case. That means big mardin. You just want to pass the verdict. Why can't you do the b'mecha gedayla so much time in the day? Why do you have to have mincha first? Like it's chila ma'ilai. Why initially can't you? Because dilma chazi time. Because maybe you might see a reasoning. Oh, you say we're about to pass the court, and you know what? I just realized this. V'sasadina, they're going to undo the whole judgment what they were about to pass, and they're going to go back into deliberations again, and you're going to start over the court case again. Because of that, even by regular functions that we mentioned in the Mishnah, you cannot do them even before mincha gedayla. But again, if you started, then you don't have to stop, which that actually takes us in the next Gemara's discussion, which are also halach l'maises. You said in the Mishnah, okay, don't start. But if you started the haircut, then we don't stop you. So what's considered the beginning of a haircut? So Amar Rav, and he says, when the barber puts that cloth on the person's lap that the hair shouldn't fall on his clothing, that's considered the beginning of the haircut. And then you don't have to stop anymore, and then you could do the haircut and daven after that. What's the beginning of taking a bath in the bathhouse? Amar Rav, and he says, Mishiyara mafartei, is when he goes and takes off the sudar, which that was the headgear in Talmudic times, the head covering, hemenu from him, that's the beginning of the taking off his garments. The first garment you take off is your headgear. That's already considered the beginning of the bathhouse experience. And then you don't have to stop. What's the beginning of your analysis of the tannery? It's Meshiyikshur, is when he ties his sleeves between his shoulders before he comes in. He's starting what called rolling up the sleeves. Once he did that, that's already considered the beginning of the tannery. What's considered the beginning of starting to eat? So Rav says, when you wash your hands before you're eating. Rav Chanina says, no, it's when you open the belt. You open the belt, you make room to eat, that's the beginning of the meal. Now, says actually, they're not disagreeing. Halon, this is for us, meaning in Bavel, they would tighten their belt very tight. When they would eat, you couldn't eat like that, you would have to open the belt. So that's for us. Vahalahu, he was talking about for them in Eretz Yisrael, they didn't have such tight belts, so they didn't have to open up the belt when they ate. So it's not the opening of the belt. For them, it was Natilas Yadayim. Now similar, Amabai says, similar to this halacha we just mentioned regarding the tightening of the belts, he says, Hani Chavin Bavloi, these are our Babylonian counterparts, who we said they have to open up the belts when they're about to eat. Lamanda Matfilas Arbis Rishos, according to the one who says that davening Mariv is volitionary, as the Gemara says in Masechtas Brachos of Chav Zayin Mabeis, that it's not really correlated to a carbon. It's correlated to only the burning of the fats and the sacrificial parts, which are not even ma'akib de kapara, whereas shachas and mincha are correlated to the tamid shal shachas shemid, which is ma'akib. Here it's not, so it's considered rishus. So keeping the sharle hemyoni, which Tais explains, not just a rishus. It means to say if you have some other extenuating circumstances, then you don't have to right away go ahead and daven mayer. But if you hold rishus, keeping the sharle hemyoni, once they open up the belt, we don't make him go through the effort to stop and go ahead and close the belt and daven. No, we let him go ahead and finish his meal, and only after that daven, because he already opened up his belt. On that is the Gemara Lamanda Machavi, but you tell me according to the one who holds that Ma'ariv is obligatory, Matrachinale, we put the person through the effort to have to close his belt and then only then go ahead and daven Ma'ariv and then go and eat. But what tefillas mincha, this is where it comes back to halacha Mishnah. You told me regarding davening mincha that the kuli al machayvihi, that you said that everyone holds that it's obligatory. And B'tnan, the Mishnah said in Mischil, if you start already eating a mafsik and you don't stop the meal, you don't have to stop to daven mincha. And he says, what's the beginning of eating? It's b'sheyatzir chagura. It's when they open up the belt. So why you tell me that only the ones who hold ma'ariv is rishus? Once you open the belt, you don't have to stop daven ma'ariv. What do you mean? But the one who holds his chayva, you have to go back, tighten the belt again and daven ma'ariv. But by mincha, which is everyone holds his chayva, he says once you open up the belt, you don't have to stop. So why is ma'ariv any different than mincha? So the Gemara continues on top of Yudam and Alf and explains as follows. Actually, ma'ariv is more stringent. Why? Hasam over there by mincha lo shchicha shikris. It's not so common for people to get drunk in the middle of the day. Because in the middle of the day, you have work, you have obligations. So people over there are not going to get drunk. So finish off the meal and then go daven. But hoch over here at nighttime, shchicha shikris, people after a hard, long day of work, they want to get a little bit intoxicated, inebriated. So it's common that people will get a little bit drunk by their meal. And therefore, yes, ma'ariv is more stringent. Because if we let you eat the meal, you might become drunk and you might come to miss ma'ariv. So therefore, yes, if you hold its chayva, you have to put back the belt on and daven ma'ariv and then go. If it's rishus, okay, then we say you don't have to because we're not going to make you go through that tircha. But yes, ma'ariv is going to be more stringent. Or Yinami, the second approach, and this is where the Gemara ends, b'mincha kim the kvilazim, since it has a set time, so mirtis, people are afraid. They're not going to come to be negligent because, mincha, what's the time for mincha? They can be worried about that. Arvis, but by ma'ariv, kim the kula lelyazman arvis, the whole night you could have a ma'ariv. Lo mirtis, people are not afraid. The asl mifsha, people are going to come to be negligent because chabtzat, I have time, I'm not going to be worried. Yeshman, and therefore, actually, we are more stringent. If you hold ma'ariv as a chayva, you have to stop, you have to put the belt back on, tighten it, and go ahead and daven ma'ariv, which that's actually the discussion of the next daf. Continue on that. Yes, you have to wear a belt when you daven ma'ariv, when you daven, because you have to be dressed appropriately when you come to daven. But again, that's the two differences that actually ma'ariv would be more stringent than mincha. Some of the ideas we spoke about in today's daf on brachas on Shabbos Daf Tes was we went back to the Bryce and Avav, which on the previous daf we spoke about the Tanakama. We quoted the Acherim. That's Remeir. He said the iskuf is meshemesh is beis rishuyos. The threshold has two functions of a domain, meaning if the doorway of the inner part of where the threshold is like basically the entryway into wherever you're going into. If the doorway is open, so then the threshold is like the inner part. If the door is closed, then it's like the outer part. So the Gemara had a question. So we assumed that it was told about that there was a lechi. The problem is the lechi is on the inner part of the threshold. The thing is, you need another lechi to permit the threshold. Even if the threshold is not a dalal dalid, the lechi only permits from the inner part of the lechi. So even if the door is open, how's that going to help? Even in the mavoi itself, if you put a lechi halfway through a mavoi, you could only carry from where the lechi is on the inner part. So how can you carry in the threshold, even if the door is not closed? It's still not permitted without a lechi. So in that, the Gemara says, yes, we're talking about a skufa of mavoi, as we had assumed, but we're not talking about a lechi. It's being permitted with a koir, with a crossbeam, which the width generally of the minimum, which is generally the crossbeam that you use for a koira, is a tefach. So that's going to go only to halfway of the width of the iskupa. So if the door is open, so then yes, the area beneath the crossbeam you could carry over there, because you view that as if it's coming down an imaginary wall, which you're allowed to carry beneath, or as a hecker, whichever one, you could carry beneath the koira, unlike a lechi. Now, if the door is closed, then you're not allowed to carry even in the part that has the koira, because once you close off the mavoi, so then you don't view the koira as connected to the mavoi anymore, because the door is closed in front of it, and you cannot say either yard v'seisim because it doesn't have dal tfachim on its own. It's only a tefach, so it's not connected to the mavoi, and it itself doesn't have 4 tfachim of space to make pitikar yard v'seisim. So then you can't carry beneath the koira. A second approach the Gemara gave was a skufis bias. We're talking about actually a threshold of a house, and we're talking about that the beam that's by the opening of the house, by the doorway, has 2 beams. Each one is less than 4 tfachim, and between them you don't have 3 tfachim. And the door, when it closes in between those 2 beams. If the door is open, you view the 2 beams connected through lavud, and therefore you see the outer part as yard v'seisim, and therefore it's part of the inner area of the house. If the door is closed, the door is closing bang right in between the two beams. Now, you cannot view the second beam as connected to the first one because you can't say love it anymore because it's obvious it's not connected anymore. Even though halachically you say I love it, you can't because the door is separated. Moreover, now the iskupa doesn't have 4 tfachim to say pi tiku yard b'saisim because each beam doesn't have 4 tfachim. And therefore, under the second beam, you're not going to be able to carry because it's not connected anymore to the first beam. Then we said from that same brayso, the Acharim say that if you have a skupa that's 10 tfachim high by 4 tfachim wide, it's Rishus Yachad la'atzma. What do you mean its own Rishus Yachad? We know it's Rishus Yachad. What do you mean la'atzma? It's coming to say that you're not allowed to be carried from the house to the skufa. But aren't they both the domain of Rishus Yachad? Yeah, because even let's say a beam in your yard that's 4 tfachim wide by 10 tfachim high, you cannot shoulder stuff on it. Why not? It's exerted that you might do the same thing with Rishus Harabim, which actually can be Haitzah Dairaisa from Rishus Harabim to Rishus Yachad. Therefore, they made a gzera even for any other thing that has the same dimensions, even in the regular Rishus Yachad. Then we started Amud Beis. We started the new Mishnah, the second Mishnah Masechta Shabbos, regarding the laws of Erev Shabbos of the next Mishnah. So we spoke about in this Mishnah things that are also Asur Samach Lemincha, which have a similar concern of you might be Nimshach Acharei, you might forget, and you might come to carry in Shabbos, or you might come to miss Mincha. So we spoke about a case of a haircut, going to the bathhouse, going to a tannery, starting a meal, or judging a court case. We said until you daven, you're not allowed to do these things because Shema Yimshach B'leis Bal, you might be drawn after you're not going to daven. Now we said if you started, then you don't have to stop. But you stop for Krishma, which is biblical. So when we said Samach Lemincha, which Samach Lemincha? So the Gemara says, it has to mean Samach Lemincha Gedayla, because if it would be Samach Lemincha Getana, it would refute Rabbi Shloimy Levi, who says you can't do anything, even if you started, until you daven Mincha. So obviously, it's Mincha Gedayla. So I'm not asking, well, you have so much time. It's 12 o'clock. You can't eat? You can't do anything? So the Gemara's first approach was, and we're talking about all these elements we spoke about in the Mishnah are elaborate things. When we said a haircut, we don't mean just a regular haircut. We mean ben alasha. It's a very, very complicated haircut where you have to leave the hairs, only those that touch the hair in front of it. When we spoke about the merchats, we meant, the whole works. You're going for a spa treatment, the hot bath, the cold bath. That could take a long time. Borsa Kigadayla we meant you got a whole new shipment of, this might take a whole day. When we said to eat, we meant a big banquet. It's a 10-course meal. This is going to take hours and hours. When we said for din, it meant starting off a court case. Till he presents, it could go till dark. The second approach was, no, we're talking about a regular haircut. But maybe we're concerned that maybe the scissors is going to break, and the machine's going to break, and be out of this. So even by Mincha Gedayla, we're concerned. When we said to the bathhouse, it was just to go to just get sweated a little bit, but we're concerned you might faint, and you might miss it. Even by the bursaki was just to go analyze, but the mamitrid, you might go find, I see this wasn't good. I just came to check. I'm on my way to do with my wife. She wants to do an errand. I have to call now that country and this thing and that distributor, and it might cause a whole thing. To eat was, a small meal, but you might come to be drawn after the food. When we said by din is even just to end, but still din, you might realize, this is not good, and you have to do over the whole court case, and therefore we're concerned that you might miss zman mincha even by mincha gedayla. But we said in the Mishnah, if you started, we don't stop you. Now, what's considered started? What does it mean you started the haircut? So by the haircuts, when the barber puts the cloth on your lap, that's it, the haircut started. By the bathhouse is when you took off your head covering, that's it, your bathhouse experience started, you don't have to stop. By the borsaki, you start already rolling up the sleeves and you tied it by your shoulders, that's it, you already started, you don't have to stop. By eating, either it means when you wash your hands, that we said is in Eretz Yisrael, or it's when you open up the belt, that's in Bubble where they tighten the belt really tight, and therefore you can't eat until you open up the belt. Now we said, according to the Mandam that holds Ma'ariv is Rishus, that once you open up the belt, we're not matriach you to go ahead and daven Ma'ariv, you already opened up the belt. Now, so that we said, according to the Mandam that holds the Chayva, that means it's more stringent than Mincha, because then you say you do have to tighten the belt. And by Mincha, because Mincha you don't have to stop like we explained, because you already started the whole eating experience. And the reason is either because by nighttime it's more common to become drunk, and therefore yes, if it's chayva by Ma'ariv would be more stringent, or because since the whole night you have time to daven Ma'ariv, you might come to be negligent, and therefore we're more stringent than Mincha, which has a set time, and that's why the halach is going to be that you would have to stop if Ma'ariv is a chayva to go ahead and daven Ma'ariv. Now let me just go. We missed one slide. All those who want to disconnect could disconnect. When we did Daf Ches, there was just a slide. Someone pointed out that we had regarding the previous daf regarding the sugya of kaveris, regarding the basket. We said if a basket has a height of 10 tefachim, there's two different halachas that could exempt you from carrying. You could be carrying dalar amas rosh hashanah. You're throwing a dalar amas rosh hashanah. It could be that you're going to be patur for two different reasons. either if it has a width of 6 tfachim. Why? What happens is that it's its own domain. If it's its own domain, because it's a Rishus HaYachid, because nirvu mitoicha, you could square out, if you have a diameter of 6 tfachim in a circle, you could square out 4 by 4. And it has a height of 10 tfachim. When you throw this, you're not throwing an object like they did in the times of the Mishkan, you're throwing a whole Rishus. It's Rishus HaYachid. Therefore, you're not chayav for haitzah, for throwing. Now, as we said, because they didn't throw Rishus in the Mishkan. Another way you would be exempt is, even if it's not 6 tfachim in its width, but Rava said it's not possible that if you have a height of 10 tfachim of a wicker basket, that some of the wicker is not going to be sticking out above. When you throw it into this Dal Ram Rishus Ram, it's not all in Rishus Ram. Part of it is sticking into the Makom Tur of above 10 tfachim. You didn't do all of it Hanocha in Rishus Ram. Therefore, you're going to be Pater, because all of it is not Menachas in Rishus Ram. Then we spoke about another case. We said, let's say you take a basket and you throw it upside down. So instead of throwing with right side up, you're throwing it upside down. So then we have the following halacha. If it's 7 tfachim and a little bit, so then you're going to be chayiv. Why? Because although you have the walls, so to speak, of the basket facing downward, so we'll say love it up until 3 tfachim. But when it's within 3 tfachim, all of it is, so we said, let's say it's 7.1, the walls of the basket. So although you're going to say love it, you're going to see as if it's attached to the ground when it's within 3 tfachim, but it's not 3 tfachim. It has to be within 3 tfachim. So it'd be 2.9, let's say. We're not being exact, but let's say 7 point. So it's all within 10 tfachim of Rishus Ram. So you threw it into Rishus Ram. But let's say your height is 7.5. You're going to be pater. Why are you going to be pater? Because we say love it. When you say love it, let's say it's 7.5. It already is considered landed when it's within 3 tfachim. So 2.9 and 7.5. That means say at that point it landed not in Rishus Ram, because part of it, the bottom of the basket, which is now on the top, is higher than 10 tfachim. Therefore, it didn't land, although it's going to land within 10 tefachim. We halachically already landed before, and therefore you're going to be pater. Now, we had an opinion that disagrees and says, no, even if it's 7.5, you're going to be chayiv. Why? Because you can't say love it over here. Walls are only for the inside, not to turn it downwards. A basket holds things right side up. When you put honey, whatever you're putting inside of it, you cannot say, says that opinion, love it this way, and therefore the halacha is going to be, even if it's 7.5, you're going to be chayiv, because you're not saying love it, and when it lands, it's within 10 tefachim from Rishus Harab, and therefore you're going to be chayiv for throwing something in Rishus Harab. Okay, thank you to any time for hosting us.